Welcome to another episode of the BREWtally Speaking Podcast, the official podcast of MetalNexus.net, where you can get all your show reviews, photos, concert reviews, and oh my god, so much more. And with me, as always, and a believer in God, is so much more, Mr. Daniel Terry. How are you doing?
Wow, that's just, wow, okay. That's my new intro.
I thought it was good. How about you?
It's not inaccurate. I am here. I'm doing well. I do believe in God. I mean, we've got all the bases covered, I think.
Yeah, you know, I hit them all. I mean, everything I said was factual pieces of words that you can say.
You're not wrong.
No, I'm not. Just remember that.
I try to tell myself that every day.
This episode's guest is Danny Worsnop. Yeah, this conversation was done a couple of weeks ago when Danny was in the midst, wrapping up, actually, his Shades of Blue album tour. And, you know, it was kind of interesting. I think Danny is one of those people who has a bit of a, I don't know if legacy is the word I want to use, but he has kind of a, Dan, help me out here. What is the word I'm looking for? What is the phrase I'm looking for?
He was in a band that a lot of people liked.
Well, I mean, he still is in that band, but no, I'm just kind of having a penchant for being a dick. A lot of people think, you know, he's kind of arrogant and all that kind of stuff. You know, it's a common thing you read and see.
Yeah, and I can relate to that in a big way. I totally understand.
You know, the interesting thing is, though, is I think between, you know, I think we actually do really well with people like that. You know, people who, from the outside, you know, you hear a lot of people go like, oh, that guy's kind of a prick, he's standoffish, whatever. And I would say between, you know, Phil Labonte, Frankie Palmieri, you know, now Danny Worsnop, you know, we've had some of these people that a lot of people think are very difficult to talk to and deal with, and they've been nothing but nice to us.
Yeah, I mean, perfectly cordial. I don't know. I think the Phil Labonte stuff is like way off base. Some of the stuff that they say about him, because I've never seen him in an interview. Like, I don't know. I've never really seen him say or do anything that like wasn't deserved.
Speaking of, I was hanging out with my dad earlier today, and he showed me a music video for this band, and I was like, oh, I think I saw them at Sonic Temple. And I go, actually, no, because I didn't think much of them, and I'm going to keep their name, you know, to myself, because just whatever. But it's one of those things where I couldn't place the band name. I was like, oh, I think I saw them at Sonic Temple Festival. And then I was like, no, I actually saw them when I went to do this interview with so-and-so from this band. And, like, the show was piss poorly attended. And my friend had seen them before on Shiprock, so that'll kind of narrow it down a little bit, potentially. But I didn't tell you the year. And there was no one there. There was no one buying merch. No one gave a fuck about the band. And they were being dicks. And, you know, I made a Facebook post. It's like, oh, too bad your band's like just a bunch of fucking assholes to the one person who actually cares about you. Great to see how you treat your fans. And I know a handful of people in the industry reached out, and I told them who it was, and they're like, oh, they're always so nice. And I was like, yeah, when they know that someone is there, but I think it's more telling when, you know, things aren't going all that well, or they don't know someone from media or just in general. But it's like, if that's how you're going to treat the one person who actually wants to talk to you and get to know you from a fan to an artist or whatever, that's really shitty, and it's more telling of probably who you really are and how you really are to people. And I like told my dad, I was like, oh man, fuck these people, like, and I told him the story, and he was like, oh, and it like completely changed his whole mood on it. And then I was like, and he goes, oh, well, I heard so and so was an asshole. I was like, no, I just like talked to them recently. I was like, no, they're pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it just depends on the day and the circumstances that lead up to it, and some of it really depends on the interviewer too, because there's a lot of people out there, interviewers, that are just out to extract information from you that they have no business really asking. Like, because, I mean, a lot of the times, I know we always approach it, and, you know, the listeners never hear this, but we kind of go over it before we do the interview, like, hey, can we talk about this? If not, that's fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and I think a lot of interviewers don't do that because maybe they only have 10 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever it is to talk to this person, and then they get, like, deeply personal, or they ask a question that's just really off base. And I mean, we've all been there. Like, I've definitely asked questions before to people that I'm like, oh, why did I say that?
Right.
Or why did I phrase it like that? So I think a lot of the times the problem is that, you know, that unfortunately is much more headliney and more clickbaity if they say something like,
that's my name,
really crazy. Yeah, clickbaity. Yeah, if they say anything crazy, you know, people are going to want to hear that. But what you don't really see is everything leading up to that. It's kind of like when we were we did the interview with, Phil Anselmo and the Illegals, and he was like, yeah, you know, there was a statement said, and that's all anybody ever focused on was that statement, and didn't really focus on anything leading up to that. And And I think that's a pretty fair assessment. And I think that's how we end up with these points of view, or we end up with this picture of a person that's really not that accurate. Because, like, we've all had bad days. We all get mad when people get out of line with us. You know, we all kind of have that reaction. You can't expect somebody to ask you something deeply personal and then you not get upset about it, because it's like a total stranger has no business, like, getting into my personal stuff like that.
Well, I think that's the weird thing about doing this is, you know, I just went back and, you know, I do listen back to our episodes after they're out and so forth, so I can just kind of learn from them and be like, I should have edited that, or this didn't sound as good as it did when I was editing it. So, like, just kind of looking at it from an objectional perspective. But I was listening back to the Landon Tours one, and, you know, we've gotten some positive feedback on that, and people being like, oh, I can't believe you had him that engaged for that long, you know, because typically he kind of is more to himself. And, you know, it was kind of interesting thinking about that, like thinking about how, you know, we have been kind of fortunate to have a lot of people in a matter of, you know, hey, I'm so-and-so, and as I'm setting up something, so in a matter of like 2 to 3 minutes of setting up all my gear, or if it's not already set up, like, okay, and now we're going into me asking you questions about things, like, I know more about you than you do about me, and that's very weird, because that doesn't happen in any other part of life. Like, you're not going to go to a random stranger and be like, so I saw on your Facebook, and, you know, because that would just come across totally fucking weird.
You're like, oh no, I thought I had my Facebook post set to private. You're like, yeah, there's ways around that.
Yeah. Oh, you added one of my fake accounts.
Now, we might want to get into this more in the outro, but there is one thing that does bother me, though.
We're gonna get
and
to
that's the concept of, like, fans feeling like they're owed something.
Oh yeah.
And like I told Phil Abante the other day, or I don't know if that's posting before this or what, but you know, I'm definitely a fanboy. You know, he's like, oh, I didn't know people hated on In Flames, and I was like, no, I love In Flames. I'm just a butthurt fanboy. And so as a butthurt fanboy, I will have more to say after you, the listeners, get to hear exactly how he feels about that.
All right, so I guess that's as good as any as a time to get into our conversation with Danny Worsnop, and we will talk to you all afterwards. So I had the pleasure of talking with Danny Worsnop, whose latest album, Shades of Blue, is out now via Sumerian Records. How are you doing on this last day of your month-long tour supporting the record?
I'm good. I'm a very arduous task of counting money right now, so it's a sad day for me. Hate counting money.
You know, I kind of wanted to know, with this being the last day of the tour, you actually were out for a full month. I always kind of find it surprising when bands, you know, especially given the nature of, you know, you have a main band that you do, and this is kind of a solo run. You know, you started the tour, and I think it was about 10 days that you had the tour before the record was officially out, and then you spent the last, you know, latter half of the record, or latter half of the month finishing it out with the record being out. Did you notice much of a difference in participation, for lack of a better word, from the fans prior to the record coming out to when it actually had come out and people were more familiar with it?
I mean, definitely, because, I mean, people know the songs then. But I think people understood more of what this is after it came out.
Yeah.
I think my last one, I think it was obvious that was me playing around, seeing what I'm capable of, just having fun, trying new things. This one, it's me going back to my roots. So I think with this one, people were kind of like, oh, this isn't the thing he's messing around with. Like, this is a real thing for him. This is the real deal, which it is. Like, I think this stopped being like just an entertaining thing and being like, oh, this is like an actual thing that he is doing.
No, most assuredly. And it was kind of funny because in listening to the first record, Long Road Home, to this one, there's obviously similarities between the two, but I would say there's a lot more contrasts in it. And I think it definitely speaks to what you were saying, kind of being more sure of what the intent was behind this record. But kind of in listening to it, I kind of got really strong. It was funny, until I saw an interview that you had posted like earlier this morning. I was like, see, there it is. I was catching it, but I got like really strong, like Chris Robinson, Black Crowes kind of vibes. And then someone who actually I found out wrote on the record, which is Chris Stapleton. I kind of got this new old kind of country, bluesy, soulful kind of vibe going from it. And it kind of made me wonder, you know, with Long Road Home kind of sounding the way it did, How long did it take for this record to kind of find its sound?
It was pretty quick. I think I knew going in that I wanted to be more true to myself and more honest with what I was creating, and I wanted to go back to where I started. I was doing this for longer than I've been in Alexandria today before Alexandria started. So this was kind of me having a chance to go back to the beginning.
Do you feel like there's an example on this new record of something that you were able to do on Shades of Blue that you were not able to do on Long Road Home?
Play guitar.
Okay.
Purely from an ability standpoint.
It is kind of funny you bring that up, because something in listening to this record, I noticed that a lot of it seems to be acoustic guitar based or piano driven, and it kind of made me wonder, was there ever an intention to do more of an acoustic or bare bones album?
Yeah. My initial thought, and when I was writing, was this is pretty much going to be acoustic. Okay. With some with some blues lead guitar. And then the more we dug into the album, the more the electric guitar came to the front. And I mean, pretty much most of what I'm writing now for next go round is all electric, and it's just digging really deep and hard into the blues.
When, you've said countless times that, this isn't a country record, this isn't, you just want it to be more of an experience from start to finish, which I absolutely think it is. I was trying to think, though, and I don't know how old you are. I know a quick Google would tell me, but, I'm in my mid-30s, and asking kind of missed me. Like, I'm not the demographic for asking. But in kind of looking at this record, it reminds me a lot of the stuff my parents grew up listening to. Like I hear a little bit of, like I said, like some Black Crowes. I hear some Rod Stewart kind of faces, early Rod Stewart stuff in this at times. And I hear a lot of people that
Stay With Me is one of my favorite songs ever.
That's a great song. But it's one of those things for me where I hear a lot of what I grew up listening to. And so when kind of looking at it from that perspective, it kind of makes me go, who is this record for? And did you have any issues kind of in the marketing of this record, because this isn't for fans of asking, although it can be, but I just don't know if the demographic of asking would really appreciate this and understand where it's coming from.
This album was made for me and nobody else. the same, but honestly, the same as most things I do. I don't make Alexandria for the fans. I don't make A Long Road Home for the fans. I don't make this for the fans. I won't make the next one for the fans. I'll probably never make an album for the fans. I think that's when artists start becoming very disingenuous and it becomes contrived, because they're writing something that isn't them anymore. They're writing something to appease people who have probably a different taste in music than them. I've just been very fortunate that I make music for me that I love, that I'm passionate about, and I'm fortunate that people dig it.
It's funny you say that, because I saw a couple of comments, and I don't remember if you answered this in your Facebook Live Q&A thing. But someone had there are a lot of shitty trolls on the internet. And I ended up seeing somebody make a comment about like, oh, you'll suck the dick of whatever trend you think can add more fame to your career or whatever. But adversely, you had made a comment, about, Rod Stewart being an influence of yours. You don't see people making music like Aerosmith, like a lot of these classic rock bands that are still out there doing it today, making that timeless music. And it kind of makes me wonder, do you feel that either the artists themselves who are being true to what they do doesn't exist anymore, or is it the fact that music as an art form has kind of become devalued?
I don't know if it's either. I just think people don't. The younger generation, I think, they don't know how to make music for themselves. They think you have to make music for the fans. They've gone on this high horse where it's like, we're doing a service for people. We are providing a service. And you've got to be loyal to the fans, and you've got to do what the fans want. No, fuck them, dude. I don't care. Like, if the next album, if nobody buys it, I don't care, because I will have had the time of my life making some songs that I'm incredibly proud of, that I'm in love with, and that I can carry and listen to for the rest of my life. That's why I do this. I do this for the love of the art and for the love of the craft and for the love of the music, not for the validation from other people than liking it, which is why it's always ridiculous when people claim sell out or that I'll move to whatever genre is going to make me more money. Like, it's literally, that is the furthest from me imaginable. Like, yeah, I love money, but I got plenty other ways of making money. I don't need to do music. This is my life.
I think speaking to more of the business side of things, something that is always kind of I've enjoyed between you and the rest of your bandmates in asking, actually, but more so I'll focus it on you, is just kind of your very tongue-in-cheek, don't give a fuck attitude to the music industry. I mean, you look at, you know, the best of bad habits video, or best bad habit video, and I just feel like it's like, you know, it's very over the top. I mean, the guitar solo where you just have a guitar out of nowhere while you're cooking a steak, and then it's like you watch this video, spoiler alert, I guess, you know, you feed it to your dog, and I was like,
Yeah.
you know, it almost seems like you're cooking for a significant other, and then the reveal is it's for a dog who just, you know, devours it in like 2 seconds. You know, which I kind of maybe was like, oh, maybe there's some more illusions there than maybe most people would pick up on, or maybe I'm overthinking it, but...
No, you're definitely overthinking it. I came up with that music video idea 24 hours before we filmed it, 36 hours before we released it. I told the label I wanted to release a video the same day that the tour dates went up, and they're like, but you haven't filmed a video. You don't have time to film a video. I was like, give me $1,000. I'll film it. They're like, $1,000? Done? You guess the cheapest video you've ever done? I was like, cool. So I called a videographer who lives kind of close to me. He drove down, and I was like, it was originally just gonna be like a performance thing, just me against white wall, just playing and singing. And then I was like, I don't know, I feel like everybody's done that. I was like, let's just do something so me, and I'll just cook steaks. And the original plan was, I was just gonna eat it afterwards. But like that ASMR stuff, where it's like mic'd up super close, and you just hear me loudly eating, and it'd be really gross. And then I was like, because that'd be hilarious. Like, there's just, the people are watching this video and they're all stoked, and then they have to sit through 7 minutes of me crazy, like loud, gross eating this steak, just like with my hands, just like, yeah, just gross. And then I was like, actually, I might be the only person who finds that funny. So then I was going to have Victoria do it, and she kind of looked at me right away like, do not involve me in your stupid plans. So then it was the dog, and it was going to be Cowboy, who's like my dude. But that morning he decided to jump in the lake out back of our house, so he was off with the groomers, and he got no steak.
I almost thought it was maybe like a very tongue-in-cheek thing of like, you know, we spend as the artist spend all this time making something for you, and then it's just devoured in 2 seconds, and then you kind of have the look of like, I want more. And so I kind of, I know that's like looking way too much into it, but
yeah. That is a beautiful way to look at it. But yeah, there was I'm not that profound.
Well, because I even was trying to tie it into the song title with Best of Bad Habits. So it's like, okay, like you enjoy making music, but it becomes a product, and people are just so quick to take it all in and then go, okay, now I want another one. Where's the next one? Where's the next one? So
I'm gonna start telling people that that's what it was.
Okay,
it was a metaphor for that. I'm stealing that. Because people will take me way more seriously as an artist.
All right. But no, you know, kind of speaking to that, though, and kind of even going to, you know, your recent Asking single, which is charting right now with Vultures.
Number 9, as of today.
There you go, in the top 10 officially. And it just kind of makes me wonder, you know, does a lot of the things you do, because it seems the kind of theme running through is that you do things because you want to do them, they make you happy, it's what you're passionate about. Does kind of traversing the music industry and the music landscape the way you are, does that end up kind of pissing people off in the industry? Like, are you experiencing any backlash as a result of like you just kind of being like, fuck it, I'm going to do what I want when I want to do it, and if you don't like it, fuck you, I don't care?
I did for a really short time, and it was very short-lived. So like, people were stoked at first when I started talking about it, and then when I started doing it and it started making some noise, people started getting pissy, being like, oh well, you can't do that. And then coming up with reasons why not, and I don't listen to them. So it got to a point where people kind of just had to accept that I was doing it. And then with this album, people have really embraced it, and it's kind of been the big turnaround where everyone has just not only accepted it, but they're embracing it now. And I think it's inspiring some people. I have a lot of artists and peers talking to me now about them wanting to do something like by themselves and explore new sounds and do new things. And I'm glad I'm able to be some kind of inspiration or caveat to their exploration of the artistry. If nothing else, I've achieved that, and hopefully brought some more good music in as well.
I think the one thing it definitely seems to have done for you, not saying that like it never was this way, but it seems that it's created more honest music out of you, personally.
Yeah, definitely. I think because it took me, writing The Long Road Home took me to places that I've never gone before, and I was able to bring that to the Alexandria record, and I was able to bring it into this record, and moving forward, everything I've been working on since. And I mean, I recorded Shades of Blue like 1.5 years, 2 years ago. So I've made a lot of music. I wrote and recorded this before I ever speaking to Alexandria again, let alone getting back together. So I've been working a lot, and I have a wealth of material where it's even further just being super open. And I mean, I think that's the nature of the blues, where you have to be real, otherwise it sounds dumb. It sounds like shit. People see through you so fast. Like you can sing anything you want of like hard rock, metal music. Like you can sing the most generic bullshit and get away with it. But when you break it down to like the blues and stuff, you have to mean it. Otherwise, it's super awful.
Well, I think that's the reason why I was kind of focusing more on the fact that this record seems like it was just solely based on piano, like the most bare minimum arrangements, because I think there's more sincerity and honesty in the approach to that, because you can't hide behind anything else, because it's just you and a voice, or the music and the voice at that point. And
that was definitely the idea, especially with some of the songs. Like Up and Down was originally like a big band funk number, kind of James Brown, super upbeat, positive sounding, super high register, and I dropped the key, dropped it an octave, took away all the instrumentation, threw it in minor, and it sounded beautiful. So we went with that, and it really gave the song an entirely different dynamic that wasn't there before.
It's funny how doing something so minute as just changing a key can completely change the tone of a song like that.
Absolutely.
You know, I kind of wanted to speak on two things. One is a little bit controversial, and the other one is just a fun thing that I wanted to ask because of the situation I'm in. So I'll ask the controversial thing first. You posted a thing on your Facebook page about basically people taking in shows through their cell phones. Over the last handful of years, there's been plenty of people, Rob Halford, as of today, videos posting everywhere of him kicking that person's cell phone out of their hands. And you know, it's even gotten to the point where, like, Aaron Lewis, who, you know, has kind of done the solo country thing as well, where he'll literally just stop the show because people aren't respecting him trying to talk or perform. And it kind of made me wonder, you know, are we just kind of getting to is this obnoxious, entitled fandom gonna go away because more people are gonna kind of want the experiences like most of us used to have before technology existed? Or do you think it's going to get worse?
I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. Okay. I think there's both. There's opportunity within it that I think will then create a better environment. And when I say opportunity, I mean from like a business and a creative standpoint, to where I think it's going to get to a point where artists kind of don't really perform. They'll do more streaming, to where they'll be like they'll have a studio, and they'll do like a concert every month or couple of weeks or something, and there'll be videos and they'll be wired into the sound, and people will pay from home to watch it. I think we're going to get to that point before people then there'll be like a big artist who's like, I'm doing a tour the old school way, coming out, and then everyone will be back in. But I think it's going to get worse and worse and worse, and then move to almost exclusively digital before the old experience of going to concerts because you love concerts and you're there to watch music, not to get things from the artist that you feel like you deserve. Because you're right, there is a very overly entitled mindset. Like if I'm leaving the venue, going to the bus, even if it's right after I've done like a meet and greet or something, and there'll be someone to walk by, or even if I'm walking through the venue from doing the meet and greet to go somewhere else, someone who didn't go to the meet and greet will be like, oh, can I get a picture? Can you sign it? It's like, these people literally just paid for that.
Right.
You can't, in front of them, expect me to do for you for free what they just paid for. Like, that's very unfair, and it would be wrong of me. And like, my meet and greets aren't just like, hey, we'll take a picture and sign stuff, but it's still the thing of, I can't give you for free what these people just paid for.
Right.
In front of them. It's insane.
Yeah.
And people expect a lot, and they feel like they deserve it for who knows what fucking reason. Because I have this really important message that I try and put out kind of semi-often, and it sounds harsh, but I think it's something that a lot of people need to hear sometimes. Like, you're not important.
Yeah.
You're not. Like, to some people in your circle, you are, and you're very important to them. But like, you can't walk around having everyone treat you like you're super fucking important. They don't know you. They don't care about you. Like, you're known to them. I think it's good that everybody knows that from time to time, because it stops everyone feeling entitled and like they deserve special treatment, because we don't. Everyone deserves to be treated well. Everyone deserves to be treated with respect. But no one deserves special treatment just because they're fucking there.
Right. I mean,
and it's easy for them to be like, come on, it's just one picture. It's like, it's not. Because it's one picture for you, but that person next to you feels special too. It's everybody.
So, coincidentally enough, you are a very busy man with the Idiots podcast, writing, producing, recording, all the businesses that you have, Asking Alexandria, this band. Something I did recently was I quit my 9-to-5 to focus on the podcast and try to make it succeed. I am married, have been married. Thank you. I've been with my wife now for almost 3 years, been together almost 10. And something that I've been asking people who are very much in this position but have been on a way bigger scale and for a lot longer, how do you find time to balance personal and work when you are so goal and work oriented?
With great difficulty. And it comes with a lot of sacrifice. I mean, we dealt with this earlier on in this tour, where I took on so much, especially with this tour, because I booked it myself. We, like, within the company, booked it. We organized everything. I was tour manager. I did everything. And it was a lot. And I loved the challenge. I loved the learning experience. But it did take me away from home time. And it took us getting to a kind of a breaking point where it was like, you can't do this. And I had to kind of let go of the reins a bit. I've employed some more people who can take that weight off me. I've proved I can do it now, to myself and to people who naysay. And now I can step back, let them do what they do, and I move forward. I mean, I feel like I'm relatively good at spreading my time out right and delegating when possible. I'm a firm believer in do as much as you can until you find someone who can do something better than you, and then give that job to them because they're better at it than you. And they can do it better than you, so they're going to bring in more money and will pay for themselves.
Right.
So it's a lot of that. It's a lot of finding the right people, and I've an incredible team and an incredible group of people within the company who I trust and who I can rely on to do the job right so that I can take time away. But it is difficult. I mean, I understand the question, and it's a really difficult one to answer because I am a workaholic and I still have issues with it. But yeah, I wish there was a simple answer.
No, I understand that. It's just it's something for me where it's kind of like a Tony Robbins type thing where it's like, okay, ask these people who are successful because of their determination and drive and work ethic, but who also are able to maintain their personal relationships from the outward looking in, at least, and try to glean something from them, not only for myself, but maybe for someone who's listening who's also doing it maybe in a completely different facet of something.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm actually, I started putting it together today. I'm about to work. I'm working on a new program that is going to come out. I don't know how to describe it. It's something of a mentorship thing, but it isn't. it's going to be a place where people can ask me questions and I can teach what I've learned, and then have a community of people who, as everyone grows, can share what they're learning, and having people from all different industries and all different facets of business.
So sort of like the masterclass programs that they're offering?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
Kind of, but it's going to be interactive.
Okay.
It's like it's going to be to where it's not just pre-made videos of me. It'll be a thing where it's like we have sessions where we sit and talk.
Okay.
And it can be like, you can ask me questions. You can show me what you've been doing, and I can give feedback. Things like that.
Okay. Well, that was all I had for you. Where can people find you and or the band, and what does the rest of 2019 hold for probably the busiest man I know?
If you go to DannyWorsnop.net, there'll be links to absolutely everything. The rest of 2019, I get off tour today. I took 2 days off all month, one of which was to drive for 28 hours to another show, and then one of which I flew to Oklahoma to play an asking show. We finishing this tour one day earlier than it was supposed to be, because I leave the last day of my tour to fly out to an asking festival tomorrow in Chicago. And then after that, I have 4 days off. I fly to Wichita. I'm doing a free concert in Wichita. And then I got a couple days off, fly to Phoenix. I've got some studio work to do. I cannot disclose any information on that, but the fact I'm going to Phoenix to do it should set off some alarm bells for anyone who pays much attention to the reason I usually go to Phoenix. And then from there, after Alexandria tour with Papa Roach and Bad Wolves, then what's after that? Oh, then we have the Drinking Bros cruise, the Drinking Bros podcast. For anyone aware, great podcast. It's a part of Black Rifle Coffee and Article 15 Clothing and Lead Slingers Whiskey. We've partnered with Carnival Cruise Liners. We have a cruise going out this September. I believe the 11th through the 16th, like the 12th through the 16th. Leaving from Galveston, Texas. People can go to drinkinbros.com with no G, just drinkinbros.com. It's going to be an amazing time on there. We're going to do live recordings of the podcast, special events, and I'll be performing also. The day I get back on land, I get on a plane. We leave with Shinedown, Papa Roach, and I can't remember the opening band. I'm an asshole. We got them, and then after that, we're working on another Danny Worsnop tour. Then I take some time off, and then I fly to New Zealand to get married on top of a mountain, and that is December.
There you go. Well, looking forward to the two opportunities I'll have to see you here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Maybe we'll have to do another one in person, drink some delicious beers or cocktails or something, and
awesome.
Do it. And thanks for your time.
Great. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. So that was my conversation with Danny Worsnop, of himself for this interview, but also of Asking Alexandria. Dan, you had something to say there at the end of the intro, so let's go ahead and get to it. I guess, how did you take the whole thing that not everyone is important or special?
Actually, I believe in that 100%.
I did too. I mean,
I was just talking literally last night. It was like the middle of the night, and I think he wanted to go to bed, and I kept messaging him. But Lauren Kozlowski from the Roach Coach podcast, we were talking about this, and I was like, the greatest advice anybody ever gave me was that I'm not special. And that's not even necessarily a knock towards me or anybody else. It's literally just you can still do cool things and be successful on your own. But if you don't believe that you're super special, then you can kind of just live your life, and you don't have to try to live up to this weird image that you've created for yourself. So that's my interpretation of that. I'm not sure if that's exactly what he meant.
I definitely think it is. I kind of took it, especially, listening back to it again when I was editing the episode, like leveling it out and all that kind of stuff. And I kind of took it more to the fact of, we're in this because I had mentioned, are we, fans feel like they're entitled to things. Like they feel like because they bought a concert ticket or because they bought, these things, they own you basically. And it didn't really articulate it that well, but that's kind of the gist of what I was saying. And it's like, people go to a concert, they buy a ticket, so they feel like, oh, well, I should be able to record it all on my phone and have my phone up the entire time. Well, yeah, I suppose if that's what you want to do, cool. But you also have to realize you're not the only fucking person in the room, and there's someone behind you that maybe can't see over you, And especially now that you got your phone over your head because you're looking at it too. And it's like a lot of times, like when I take photos or videos, I always make sure and wait for someone in front of me to take one. And then I purposely zoom in onto what they're videoing because I think that's fucking funny. Like, I'm not filming anything else. I'm filming what you're filming through your camera because that's basically the equivalent of what you're doing anyway. Like, you're seeing it, but then you're going to put it onto this tiny little fucking device or whatever. But it just seems like people are so... We just live in this world of entitlement. Like, you know, when I went out to Ann Arbor, which is a major college town, you know, it's one of the Big Ten schools, it's one of the major colleges in the U.S., and it was like pulling teeth to get fucking kids to come work at a pseudo fast food job. And like you'd have people show up, and then like as soon as they like, you'd be like, "Oh, you got to work on the front." Oh, I don't want to do that. And it's like, well, no, you have to. Like, this is your job. This is what the job entails. You signed an application, you filled out an application. We did the interview, and you basically signed off that you could perform the basic functions of the job, which is this. No, I don't want to do that. And like I would just see people just quit like on a whim, and it's like, what the fuck? Like, I just feel like there's this weird sense of entitlement going around. Not just, you know, in going to concerts, but in life. Like, people have this weird sense of entitlement. Like, they're owed the best job without doing anything or earning it. They're owed all these things. And it's like, who the fuck gave you this sense of entitlement? You haven't earned shit. And I wholeheartedly believe that. And I think that applies to the fact that also goes to what Danny's saying. Just because, like, I just came out of a venue where people paid their hard-earned money to come see me do a VIP meet and greet because they felt it was worth it to them. And you're just standing outside of a building and I'm supposed to give you what they just paid for free? Yeah, that kind of makes him look like an asshole, but it makes him value more of what the people paid their money for, which is to have that experience with him. It doesn't mean one person's better or not. It just means that there is an emphasis on value. And that by taking the photo for you, and then the next person who comes in, and then the next person who comes up, that's devaluing what people just paid all their fucking money for to get that experience. And I've seen people get super shitty about that. And it's like, then fucking pony up the money. If you care that much, I don't care if you've been there 10 hours. Pay the money.
Well, to avoid going into a get off my lawn kind of...
Oh, we're on the lawn, we're in the backyard, we're on our neighbor's lawn, we're streaking, man. We're going full out with this.
Well, here's the thing. I understand that aspect of it. Like, I'm not going to take a picture with you because I took pictures with people and that was part of their meet and greet. However, obviously there was more to the meet and greet than, hey, let's snap a selfie here together. Just so everybody on my Facebook or Instagram can find out that, you know, I was with you at this place or whatever. Even though that in itself is kind of a deception. You know, you take a selfie with somebody and it kind of creates the impression of like, because how many people go home and they're like, oh yeah, we're friends now, you know, and all this weird stuff. I don't know. That's a whole different part of it. But if we're talking about the horribleness of human behavior, that is definitely part of it. However, if your meet and greet really just boils down to, you know, somebody took a selfie with me and then moved on to the next person in line, you need to really step it up in your meet and greet department. That's not really much. You know, at all, and that's probably just my entitlement talking. The thing is that I don't feel like that's a great value. So, like, just to get a picture with somebody, especially not to the point where the artist themselves feels like them taking 5 seconds out to take a selfie with a fan outside of the show is somehow like ripping off all of the people that made. Like, I understand where he's coming from, but I don't necessarily agree with it. If it were me, I'd probably just take the selfie and whatever. Because more than likely, if I did do a good meet and greet with a bunch of fans prior to the show, then those guys are probably all satisfied anyway. I'm probably not going to get a bunch of hate mail because somebody saw on Bobby's Facebook that he took a picture with me outside of a show once, and I paid for the meet and greet, and you know, I don't think that it's fair. Like, I don't think anybody out there is saying that.
I have seen those comments both ways. So, I mean, it's a fine line. I was actually more interested in, you know, we haven't even discussed this at all, your thoughts on the live concert experience, like how he kind of thought that was going to start potentially going.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, indirectly, like, Emery's kind of proving that concept, and a lot of these other bands doing similar things are kind of proving that concept is actually a viable option, potentially.
Yeah, no, I think that's just smart market research. You know, I think that people are...
Would you watch it? Would you watch a Zayo, like if they stopped touring and they just did like maybe once a month, did a live set thing or whatever, like 2 hour, they play songs, they do maybe like answer some questions on Facebook Live or whatever, but you paid $10. Would you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt about it. Like, and that more or less is what it's like now with Zayo anyway. But well, because they don't tour, they're not on tour all the time. They're, they'll do like 3 or 4 dates, per season. I'm noticing, and that seems to be enough. But yeah, they don't really do the meet and greet. Well, this is a perfect example to bring up. Okay, so Zayo doesn't do a paid meet and greet or anything before or after the show. But like those guys are super, and granted, maybe they were never, on the same popularity level as in Asking Alexandria, which is a horrible travesty I want to put on the record officially. But those guys are all super duper approachable in the sense that after the show's over, because I remember the last 3 or 4 times I've seen the band, I've already had them on my podcast or whatever. So like, I actually get less of an experience with them than the fans do, in that because I remember I brought my Well-Intentioned Virus vinyl sleeve with me to have all the band members sign it, because I'm still a fanboy first and foremost. And but no, I mean, I remember standing there having to wait for them because they'd have like a line of people up to each band member just chatting and chatting and chatting and chatting, and they took such an amount of time. Even though they were out of town, they probably wanted to leave, they probably were hungry, tired after playing a show. They sat there and gave every single fan their day in the sun with Zayo. And then me, the podcaster fanboy, I had to wait until the very end of all of that, to be like, hey, you guys want to sign this photo? They're like, yeah, it's cool. I got to shake hands with everybody. How you doing? Great. When are we going to do the podcast again? Sometime soon. Okay, great. Wonderful. See you later. Bye-bye. And so I think that's the biggest difference in how artists approach things. I think maybe with Zayo, it's a little bit different in the sense that they're just happy to have the fan base that they have, and they just cater to that fan base. Whereas I think with Danny, it's more of like this is a business. This is how I make my living. None of the guys in Zayo live off of Zayo, So I think the approach is different whenever it's like your paycheck. And so I can kind of agree with Danny in the sense that I as I've said multiple times, I do repair work. I do repair work on garage doors for people. But it is kind of frustrating when, I make a certain amount of money per job that I do in my normal job, and then a friend or family member will call me and be like, hey, can you come over and look at this? And then you come over and look at it, and you repair it, or you do whatever it is you need to do, and then they're all like, oh, well, you're not going to charge me. It's like, well, this is what I do for a living, So yeah, I'm going to charge you. Maybe if you're a family member, I'm not going to charge you as much as I would charge somebody else. So like if you take the entertainment quality out of it, all that stuff about entitlement and all of that stuff about people getting ripped off if you do something for free, you're ripping off the people that you did charge. I could definitely see it from that perspective, but I definitely think as a podcaster or, somebody that's been in a band or whatever, my approach has always been more of I'm just stoked that you're listening to me, and that you think that my band is cool, or you think that my show's cool or whatever. I don't get upset about it. Like we mentioned in another podcast about, it's weird now doing the show. And now that there's hundreds of hours of me and John talking to each other, or there's hundreds of hours on, of me talking about music on discography discussion, and, the people that I do meet locally that listen to the show kind of approach me in a manner of, kind of like what we were talking about in the intro, approach me in a manner of like, oh, I already know you because I've been listening to you talk for hours and hours and hours and hours. But my approach is still just one of those like, oh my God, you listen to my stuff, So I guess maybe if I was on the same level that Danny is on, maybe I would feel the way he feels. So I guess that's just it took me a long time to get here, but ultimately what I'm trying to say is that while I understand why he feels that way, that's not the approach probably that I would take, and I don't think it's a good PR approach.
Yeah. Speaking of PR, we'll kind of see if anything from this ends up on anything. I could see maybe the news of him unofficially saying that he's going to Arizona to record the new Asking record. Unofficially. I could see that being on there, and obviously the thing that we've been talking about now for like over 10 minutes. But no, I really enjoyed this conversation. I was kind of not sure how it was going to go. Even the few interviews I've heard him do have been with people he's toured with, so I mean it's a little bit hard to kind of gauge how he really is. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. I would definitely love to talk to him again. Asking Alexandria is coming through twice through town here, and would love to do it in person and actually talk more about Asking Alexandria stuff as opposed to this, because I think they have a very interesting story from where they started to where they are now, and all the other shit going on inside of that. So hopefully we can maybe do another round with Danny and kind of focus more on Asking. But speaking of Danny, if you'd like to keep up with everything that's going on with him, it's real fucking simple. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Danny Worsnop. If that's too hard for you or you need more, go to DannyWorsnop.com and you can get everything you need there. If you'd like to keep up with Metal Nexus, metalnexus.net, Facebook at Metal Nexus, Instagram at metal.nexus, Twitter at metal_nexus, and Dan's going to tell you where he can be found on the interwebs.
Yeah, I can be found at Discuss the Metal Dan on Twitter. I can be found on Facebook under Daniel Terry. And I can be found on Gmail at discussmetaldan@gmail.com. You can find my other podcast, Discography Discussion, at discussmetal.com.
And if you would like to keep up with all things this podcast, simple enough, like Danny Worsnop, we are simply under BrewSpeakPod on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Email us at BrewtallySpeaking@gmail.com. And keep up with our show sponsor, The Bean Bastard, over at thebeanbastard.com. Bean Bastard on Facebook and Instagram. And if you would like to also be a sponsor, email us. We'll take your money and plug your stuff. We like a lot of things, so let's make that happen. And so for the Brewtally Speaking Podcast, I am John.
And I am Dan.
And we'll talk to you all next time.